I spoke to you both. I couldn't tell you when. It was probably within the last 3 months.
Okay.
And I was struggling with. I think I know it was Tracie, and I think it was also you, John. I'm sorry if I'm misremembering.
That's okay.
And at the time, I was dealing with a lot of stuff about hell, and I was very kind of into reading these apologetic literatures, and I was just listening to as much stuff as I could on the subject, and I was very afraid of the existence of hell to the point when it was very detrimental to my life. And I'll say that it still is, and it's continuing to get worse. And at the time I spoke to you, I didn't mention this, and I say this at risk of sounding like the last caller, but at the time I was kind of dealing with a very small of what I interpreted then to be hallucinations of sorts.
Okay.
And I think you're the first real people I've mentioned this to, so it's very weird to say it out loud, but I have had this, and they have gotten just incredibly intense to me, and I have, I think, both a lot of reason to assume that they are or aren't of an actual divine origin, and they're very scary, and I'm not really sure what to do with it.
Okay, Teddy, wait, let me interrupt you. So you're saying you haven't really talked to anybody about this. Do you have family, friends, anybody close to you that you can talk to?
I mean, I have my mother at this point, and my siblings, but I don't, they're very atheist and agnostic. And I mean, I was like that too before this really started, and they haven't, I don't think that they would kind of take me serious. And they're not because they're not good people, they're fantastic people.
I feel kind of bad because sometimes I'm not the most empathetic person in the world, and I don't want to be unempathetic. But I'm taking you very seriously, but probably not for the reasons that you're thinking. And I really, really, really think you need to talk to somebody and get some help with this. This is the last call, you were having some severe anxiety issues. And you're basically saying that it was a few months back, and it hasn't gotten better. And in fact, it's intensified, and that you are having something that you're kind of juggling the word hallucination here.
I think I have very good reason from a logical or an evidential standpoint, not an evidential standpoint, to think that it's real.
Okay, but
let me say it like that. I'm not trying to convince you that my hallucinations or whatever it is, I've been experiencing voices with an actual volume to them and an actual weight to them that sound to me as if they're actual voices, and I've had hallucinations that not as often but do look like real things. It's not just a feeling. I'm not like the last caller in the
I believe you. Okay, I believe you. I'm just
but I'm not trying to convince you that a God exists. I'm just saying from my perspective, because I don't think you should if someone told me they believed in God because of religious experience they had, I wouldn't believe them, and I wouldn't expect you to.
The problem here is that the things that you were describing can be tied to certain forms of mental illness, and the fact that you're saying it's intensifying is concerning. And I'm just trying to make you consider why. It's almost like if someone's having a pain in their shoulder and it won't go away, and they're saying, oh, I just think it's because I did this thing the other day. And then 3 months later, the pain's getting worse. It may not be the thing that you did 3 months ago. At that point, don't you think that it might be wise to just go have a physician look at the shoulder and rule out any kind of real problems like cartilage issues or a muscle tear? Or, doesn't that just make sense that you would rule out anything that could be harmful or dangerous before you proceed?
So I'm not averse to psychology or that. I don't have any anti feelings against it. I'm just very concerned about the consequences of doing that. And on a related note.
What consequences?
I mean, if you tell people I've been having hallucinations and I'm hearing voices.
If you tell a professional therapist or a professional counselor or psychologist or whoever you go and see, they're not going to go and broadcast
They'll
this.
help you. It's not, and it's not just psychological. It could be physical
yeah,
too.
and also that's the other thing. There could be a physical problem, or they could say it's nothing to worry about, and that would be great.
Well, like let me put it. The last caller, did you get the impression from them that they were even able to consider the fact that their hallucination wasn't real? Because I would think if I was actually truly crazy, then I wouldn't be able to even consider that, or I wouldn't even like be aware. I would just instantly assume that they were real. But, I mean, and to me, like at a physical level, like I interpret them at the same level by this point, which I wasn't earlier.
Here's the problem. When a person has an issue, like for example, an alcoholic, they will pretty much rationalize it in any way they have to rationalize it to maintain.
But it's not an
wait a minute. It's to
Okay,
maintain the addiction, okay? And so sometimes they'll even say, yeah, I might have a problem. Would I even be considering that I might have a problem if I was really an alcoholic? I mean, I know I drink a little bit much, or maybe I go. Or a lot of times they'll measure it to the point that there's something called a functional alcoholic, and that's a person that in order to protect their alcoholism will make sure that they don't drink too much to go to work, that they don't drink too much that makes problems in their lives, and they restrict their drinking consciously, not because they're really not an alcoholic, but because they know that if they go over those lines, they'll have to address it and they might have to stop drinking. So they end up trying to measure that to control it. And so when I hear somebody saying, like, would I do this if I was actually having, it's like, yeah, because sometimes people understand how to curb that sort of problem in order to maintain the perspective that I'm okay and it's not a problem. I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your situation. And I'm not even saying you have a problem. I'm simply saying that you are exhibiting some symptoms that are concerning. And it would be a really good idea to rule out issues that could be harmful or that could progress in a worse way. If you go and talk to somebody that's a professional and they tell you, you seem okay to me, whatever these things are, these voices or whatever, it's just might be you working things out in your own head, and it's cool. I actually had a friend who had a period where she was hearing voices, and she did go to a professional, and they told her it was nothing to worry about, and eventually the voices just stopped. It was just a period in her life where this is something that manifested. It might be nothing to worry about, but it might be something to worry about. Why not just go rule out the concern?
I mean, well, so I'm a college student, and I did go to I went to a the college psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever it was several times, but I never, at the time I really wasn't dealing with this issue, and they told, but I didn't have like the hallucination problem. I just told them about the fear, and they kind of told me that it would go away on my own unless I wanted to take like anxiety medication, and I was a little reluctant to do that.
But if it's getting worse, it might be an option. It might be something to go back and maybe consider anti-anxiety medication if you're having worse anxiety after 3 months. It's not getting better, Teddy. It's not getting better.
Well, at this point, my thing isn't the anxiety. It's like my main two things is if the health thing is actually something I need to worry about, and if these things in my head are real or not. Either way, I'm in a pretty bad shape, because then if I'm having these things and they're not real, some sort, then I would be crazy because at the level they're at. But
well, the thing is, Teddy, though, is that we can sit here and we can tell you they're not real and hell's not real and you have nothing to worry about. But this is real to you right now, and so that's the thing you need to work through.
Well, right, but okay. Well, say hypothetically this was real, and this is my thing, and I go to the psychiatrist and I tell them my issue. The psychiatrist, like you, and I think this is the rational thing from your perspective to do, is to assume honestly, and I wouldn't be insulted by this assumption, which I'm sure you're making, that I'm crazy. I'm not insulted by that assumption, because if I came across a person, I thought the last caller sounded crazy to me, which is weird, and I'm sure people who would hear me would think that I'm crazy.
I'm honestly not assuming that.
I don't assume you're crazy. I don't even assume the last caller
I'm just
was
saying
crazy.
that you have symptoms that could align with problems, and it's just to rule it out. It's just like if somebody was talking to me and they had ambiguous symptoms that could align with cancer and could be benign. It's like I would say, would you want to rule out cancer? I would.
Well, but the difference is so if this is real and I go to the psychiatrist, and then Yeah, I don't mean real as in I'm crazy. I mean real as in the things. They're going to tell me that I'm crazy either way.
No, they're not. This is the thing. You have. Okay, wait a minute. You've gone to a counselor. Did they tell you you were crazy?
They did not, but at the time
I have never heard of a counselor telling someone they're crazy. I have never heard of that. They will not do that.
They're literally. I'm sorry. I don't mean that they're literally going to say you're crazy or not. I mean they're going to say we diagnose you with whatever. You need to be taking these medications. You need to be hospitalized.
They may or may not, though. You're making these assumptions about what's. You're almost doing with the psychiatry I guess the psychiatrist might actually be prescribing because that's what they do. But if you go to like a therapist, for example, or a counselor or some sort of a psychologist, there is no telling what they'll do because we don't know what's going on here, and they won't know until they see you. And so they can't possibly make any kind of recommendations until they've had a chance to evaluate what's happening here. And it's like I just said, I had a friend who went, she was hearing voices. I think most people, if they heard that, would be like, oh my gosh, she has schizophrenia. But when she talked to the person, she was fine. They were like, it just sounds like something that you're working out in your own head over some stressful stuff, and it'll probably resolve itself, and it did. Now, with you, you're calling and saying 3 months ago I called, and now it's much worse. And I'm saying...
Well, and at that point it was several months, but the hallucinations, and I mean, at this point I'm like slightly more leaning towards the fact that they're real or not. And when I say hallucinations, I really mean like what you would probably call like demonic experiences. And I know... Well, so look, if I go to the psychiatrist, they're gonna.
I wouldn't even say a psychiatrist. Go to like a licensed therapist. And
well, I'm just using it as a catch-all term. I don't actually know.
If you go to a psychiatrist, you may actually end up prescribed something because that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, they're doctors, medical doctors.
But I would say go to a licensed therapist. In your area and just get this looked at. Would you consider doing that and then calling us back after that experience?
Well, can I just say, because the problem wasn't that they were going to assume that I'm crazy or that I'm diagnosable. Even if I'm not, the thing is that they are always, and this is from their perspective probably the rational thing to do, operate under the assumption that I am incorrect about the fact that I am actually hearing these voices.
Maybe not, though.
Or not, I'm sorry.
I think you're making assumptions about what they're going to assume. I think that you...
Do you, Tracie, you honestly think I'm going to go and they're going to say, yes, those things in your head. They might say I have something to worry about.
I'm saying that there is a big range between I'm having demon visits versus I'm imagining things and need to be put on antipsychotics. There's a huge range of possibilities that this counselor is supposed to be considering.
My concern isn't that they're going to label me something. I mean, it is a concern, but my bigger thing is if the things I'm having are real, they have no way of recognizing.
Right,
that.
But we could rule out everything else they could think it is, couldn't we?
No, and they will convince me that it's not real. And then if they are real, and I have hell to worry about, and I have demons to worry about.
I think you're talking yourself out of counseling, and I think what you're doing is exactly what I was afraid that you were doing to start. You're basically trying to come up with any excuse in the book to not go see somebody who may be able to help you because you're protecting this situation. And that's what I was talking about with regard to the alcoholic. You are basically preemptively...
Are you implying that I have control of the hallucination?
I don't believe an alcoholic has control. So no, I'm not implying that at all.
No,
I'm saying that you are protecting this situation. You are making every excuse in the book to not investigate other avenues that could potentially be causing this because you are protecting this situation.
And it's lead me to the.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I cannot, in good conscience, continue taking your calls unless I know that you've gone to somebody and ruled out other potential problems. I mean, I really have to draw a line and say that if you want to call back, and at least I can't speak for other hosts, but for myself, if you want to call back, you're going to have to go and see a counselor and talk to somebody and at least get a visit in and have them look at this and evaluate it and give you the okay that there's nothing really badly wrong going on here. And until that happens, I just don't feel right because I feel like I'm enabling you if there is a problem, by taking the calls and by continuing this conversation, when I really think that you should go and at least rule out the potential for something harmful. I can't enable that. I've become the surrogate for you going and getting help, and that's not acceptable. It's not helping. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and I know that seems harsh, but if I'm happy to talk to you more, but you have to go and see someone first, and they have to say that you're not in any danger. And if that happens, I can talk to you again. Is that fair? Okay.
Well, that's too bad.
So I'm gonna not, okay, I see there's somebody else that's like being screened on that line, so I'm not gonna hang up on that line. Yeah, that is definitely not something I want to encourage people to keep doing. It's almost like, I just want to just explain to some people who may not understand what I just did. Sometimes a person will have a problem, and then they come to you and they talk to you about it like as a friend, and they'll say like, I'm in a situation that's really, really bad. And you're like, okay, obviously this person has to resolve or get away from this situation. And so you talk to them a little bit, you try to be supportive. And they come back later and they're like, it's getting much worse. And you're like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to help you, I'm ready to support you. I think that you should go and seek help with this particular group, or these people that I know can help you, they deal with this situation. They can at least evaluate this and see if there's any danger of this escalating or getting worse. And the person is making every excuse in the book to not go and actually get help, or to go and at least find out if they need further help. When that happens, what they start do is they start leaning on you as sort of the release valve to let the pressure off, so that they can stay in the situation. They can come to you, they can release the pressure, they can go back and stay in that situation. And so they never fix the situation. And you never know if they're in real danger or they're not in real danger, and you just sit there constantly hearing somebody come to you and you feel like you want to help them and you can't, because they are not going to get help. I don't know what is going on with Teddy. I really don't. But I wouldn't feel right continuing to be that release valve for him so that he can stay there and not go and get it checked. All I'm asking him to do is just go and have a conversation with a therapist and have that checked. And if he can get a therapist to say, I don't believe that you are in any danger. I don't think that you need to be on any kind of medications. I don't think that there is a problem here that's going to be dangerous for you or get worse in the future. Then I will continue talking to Teddy like any other caller. But I don't feel comfortable with it right now because he's acting like somebody who is avoiding going. He made every excuse and put up every wall to go and talk, just to go in and talk to a therapist.
Well, and I think that's part of the fear. I mean, he has a lot of fear. He's struggling with a lot of fear. And if you're still watching Teddy, I just want to encourage you that I understand that fear is a big. You have a fear of hell. I think you have kind of a fear of getting this checked out. You have a fear of being labeled crazy. I mean, even with Dante, I don't think Dante's crazy. I think if he went and did a recording and there was, sure enough, there was a voice there. That's why we want to test it.
Yes.
We don't just immediately jump to the assumption that there's no voices and he's crazy. And I wouldn't jump, and I don't think a therapist would jump to the assumption that you're crazy and you need, you need meds. Maybe there's something going on that needs to be checked out.
And I think the anxiety, though, is also evident because what I saw Teddy doing was already preemptively building this up to a big ugly situation. He's like 500 conversations ahead with the therapist already and taking medication. And it's like, dude, you just need to walk into the office and sit down and just have an hour and just let them know what's going on. They can chat with you and maybe set up, like we'll talk next week and see how this goes. And here's some things you can try. Here's some things you can focus on. I mean. Yeah,
they're not a good therapist isn't going to judge you. They're not going to call you crazy. They're not going to say it's all in your head. They're going to sit down and find out what's going on and figure out the best way to help you.
I've gone to therapists more than once.
Yeah,
licensed
me
therapy,
too.
and it's awesome. I've loved the experience and recommend it to anybody who thinks they need it. Don't be afraid to just go seek out a therapist. And for those who are having bad experiences with religious therapists, there is the Secular Therapy Project. They will help you find a secular therapist. So just kind of FYI on that front.